Welcome back to the deep dive. We often think of learning as this purely mental thing, but your source material really got me thinking about how much our emotions actually drive the whole process.
Yeah.
So today we're going to deep dive into your brain seeking system
Okay.
and how it can basically turn you into a learning machine.
It's true. Emotions are the fuel for so much of what we do, including learning and this seeking system. It's really a game changer when it comes to understanding how we learn and why some learning experiences are just so much more powerful than others.
So break it down for me. What exactly is the seeking system and how does it work?
Well, you can picture it as this primal emotional network in your brain, always pushing you to explore, to figure things out, to chase those aha moments.
So it's like my inner explorer, always on the hunt for something new and interesting.
Exactly. And the fuel for this explorer is dopamine. You know, that feel-good chemical we all crave. It's not just about pleasure, though. Dopamine is released in anticipation of a reward.
Uh-huh.
And that anticipation is what drives us to keep seeking, keep learning, and keep pushing ourselves.
Okay, so that makes sense. When I'm curious about something or when I see how what I'm learning connects to my life, I definitely feel more motivated.
That's your seeking system firing on all cylinders. And it's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. This system operates on three distinct levels.
3 levels. Tell me more.
Absolutely. The first level is primary processing. It's all about survival. It's the seeking system in its most basic form. Think finding food, water, shelter, the things we need to stay alive.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we go from I need food to I need to learn about astrophysics?
That's where the second level kicks in, secondary processing. This is where your brain starts to recognize patterns, make associations, and connect those pleasurable aha moments to the learning process itself.
So I'm not just seeking food anymore. I'm seeking those satisfying feelings of understanding and making connections.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting, because it sets the stage for the third level, tertiary processing. This is where higher level thinking comes in imagination, creativity, planning for the future.
Yeah.
It's where we move beyond reacting to our environment and start actively shaping it through learning and problem solving.
So it's like taking all the good feelings and insights from those first 2 levels and using them to become a more deliberate, strategic learner.
Exactly. And this tertiary level is where the magic really happens. You're not just absorbing information, you're applying it, playing with it, making it your own.
This is fascinating stuff, but I'm curious, how do we actually tap into this seeking system to make learning more effective? I mean, let's be honest, sometimes learning can feel more like a chore than a thrill ride.
I hear you. And that's where things get really practical. There are specific things we can do to create environments and experiences that light up the seeking system and make learning more enjoyable, more engaging, and more effective.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of these strategies and how can we put them into action?
One of the most fundamental things is creating a learning environment that feels safe and supportive. You know, stress actually puts the brakes on dopamine release.
Okay.
When you're constantly worried about being judged or getting things wrong, your brain goes into fight or flight mode, not let's explore and discover mode.
That makes total sense. It's hard to be curious when you're feeling anxious or threatened.
Exactly. And the research is really clear on this. A safe and supportive environment where mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth is crucial for optimal learning.
So it's not just about physical safety, it's about creating a space where people feel comfortable taking risks, asking questions, and even messing up a bit.
You got it. It's about building what's called relational trust, those strong, positive connections between teachers and students and even parents. It creates a foundation of psychological safety that allows the seeking system to really flourish.
That's a powerful idea. So we've got the foundation, a safe and supportive environment. What else can we do to tap into that seeking system and make learning more engaging?
Well, here's where it gets really exciting. Remember that secondary processing level where our brains are making connections and seeking those aha moments?
Yes.
Well, one of the best ways to tap into that is through firsthand experiences. Think hands-on activities, real-world problem solving, projects anything that gets you actively involved in the learning process.
So it's not just about passively listening or reading, it's about actually doing something.
You nailed it. And there's a great Chinese proverb that sums it up perfectly. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand.
I love that. It really highlights how powerful hands-on learning can be. It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about making those facts come alive through experience.
Exactly. And when you're actively engaged, your seeking system is firing on all cylinders, releasing dopamine, making those connections, and solidifying the learning in a way that passive learning just can't match.
So we've got the safe environment, we've got the hands-on experiences. What else can we do to create those aha moments and keep that seeking system humming?
Well, there's this fascinating concept called flow. Have you ever gotten so absorbed in a task that you completely lose track of time?
Oh, absolutely. Like when I'm writing or working on a challenging project that I'm really passionate about, I can get so focused that the rest of the world just fades away.
It's that state of deep focus and enjoyment where you're completely immersed in a challenging but achievable task. It's like being in the zone.
That sounds amazing. It's like those moments where learning feels effortless, almost like play.
Exactly. And that's where the seeking system is in overdrive. It's pumping out dopamine, making connections, solidifying learning. It's like a mental symphony happening in your brain.
So, how do we create more of these flow experiences in learning? Is it just about finding activities we enjoy?
It's a bit more nuanced than that. The key is to strike the right balance between challenge and skill level. If something's too easy, we get bored. If it's too hard, we get frustrated and give up. But when we're right on the edge of our abilities, stretching ourselves just enough, that's where the magic happens.
So, it's about finding that sweet spot, the zone of proximal development, as Vygotsky called it. It's about being challenged just enough to stay engaged and motivated.
Exactly. And the beauty of this is that it's something teachers can intentionally design for. By setting clear goals, providing immediate feedback, and minimizing distractions, they can create those flow experiences that maximize student engagement and make learning truly enjoyable.
I love that. So, we've talked about creating a brain friendly environment, the power of hands on experiences, and flow. Are there any other strategies we can use to supercharge that seeking system?
You bet. This one might surprise you: play, movement, and laughter.
Oh, wait, seriously. Play in the classroom. Isn't that, a bit disruptive?
It might seem counterintuitive, but research actually shows that play, especially the unstructured kind, is like rocket fuel for the brain.
Hmm.
It boosts dopamine levels, reduces stress, and energizes students, making them more receptive to learning.
Wow, that's fascinating. It really challenges the old sit still and be quiet model of education, doesn't it?
It does, and it's not just about letting kids run wild. It's about recognizing the incredible value of play as a learning tool. Did you know that Finland's education system, which is consistently ranked among the best in the world, actually mandates 15 minutes of free play per hour
Wow.
for grade school children?
15 minutes per hour. That's amazing. They clearly recognize the importance of giving kids the space and time to play and explore.
They do. And it's not just about letting off steam. Play helps kids develop social skills, problem-solving abilities, creativity, all essential for success in the 21st century.
Okay, I'm officially a believer in the power of play. It makes so much sense when you think about how much kids learn through play. They're naturally curious, they're experimenting, they're making mistakes and learning from them. It's all about engaging that seeking system in a fun and organic way.
Precisely. And it's not just for kids either. We all benefit from incorporating more play and movement into our lives, regardless of our age. It keeps us energized, reduces stress, and yes, it boosts our learning ability.
All right, I'm sold. But what about technology? It can be such a distraction, but it also has amazing potential for learning. How do we strike that balance and use technology to engage the seeking system in a positive way?
That's a great question, and it's one that educators and parents are grappling with all the time. Technology can be an incredible tool for tapping into the seeking system, but it's all about how we use it. We need to go beyond just replacing textbooks with screens.
So it's not about passive consumption, it's about active creation and exploration.
Exactly. Imagine using technology to create interactive simulations, solve real-world problems using online resources, or collaborate on projects with students from around the world.
I love that. It's about using technology to empower students to become active learners, not just passive consumers of information.
Precisely. You mentioned distractions earlier, and that's a valid concern. But here's the thing. Distractions are all around us, with or without technology. The key is to teach kids how to manage those distractions, to develop those executive function skills that allow them to focus and engage in deep, meaningful learning, whether they're using a computer or a textbook.
So it's not about demonizing technology. It's about teaching kids how to use it responsibly and effectively as a tool for learning and growth.
Exactly. And there are some incredible examples out there of how technology can be used to unlock the power of the seeking system. Have you ever heard of Saugata Mitra's School in the Cloud experiment?
Tell me more.
He basically set up a computer with internet access in a slum area of New Delhi
Oh, wow.
and left it there to see what would happen. And you know what? The kids, who didn't even speak English, figured out how to use it, started learning things, and even began teaching each other.
That's incredible.
It is, and it shows how powerful technology can be when we give kids the freedom to explore, to experiment, and to learn at their own pace.
It's like a real-world example of the seeking system in action. Kids are naturally curious, they're driven to explore and figure things out, and technology can be an incredible tool for facilitating that process.
You got it. And it's not just about access to information. It's about access to tools that allow kids to create, to collaborate, and to express themselves in new and exciting ways.
This is all so inspiring. I'm starting to see how understanding the seeking system can really transform the learning experience both for kids and for adults.
I'm glad to hear that. And, there's one more piece of the puzzle that I think is crucial for unlocking the full potential of the seeking system, fostering a growth mindset.
Ah, yes. Carol Dweck's work on mindset is so powerful. It's the idea that we can either have a fixed mindset, believing our abilities are set in stone, or a growth mindset, believing we can always learn and improve with effort.
Exactly. And you know what? This ties back to the seeking system in a really profound way. A growth mindset is like giving your seeking system permission to flourish. It encourages you to embrace challenges, to be curious, to keep exploring, even when things get tough.
So it's not just about believing you can learn, it's about believing that the process of learning, even when it's challenging, is a valuable and rewarding experience in itself.
You got it. And the research is clear. Students with a growth mindset are more resilient, more motivated, and ultimately more successful. They don't see setbacks as failures, they see them as opportunities for growth.
So a growth mindset is like giving your brain a superpower. It unlocks the full potential of the seeking system and makes learning a more joyful and fulfilling experience.
Exactly. And it's something we can cultivate in ourselves and in others. It's about praising effort over intelligence, encouraging do-overs, and focusing on the process of learning rather than just the outcome.
This is all so fascinating. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how my own brain works and how I can use that knowledge to become a more effective learner. But what about the learners themselves? What can we do to empower them to take ownership of their own learning and make it more engaging?
That's a fantastic question, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive. Stay tuned.
All right, so we've laid the groundwork. We understand the power of the seeking system and how it drives our motivation to learn. But now I'm curious, how can we as individuals tap into this system and make learning a more joyful and effective experience?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the good news is there are a ton of practical strategies we can use to become more intentional and empowered learners.
Okay, I'm ready to level up my learning game. Where do we start?
One of the most powerful things you can do is cultivate curiosity. Remember, your seeking system thrives on novelty and the thrill of discovery.
That makes sense. But, sometimes it feels like learning is more of a chore than an adventure. How do we reignite that spark of curiosity, especially when we're dealing with subjects that might not immediately grab our attention?
I hear you. It's easy to fall into a rut, especially when we feel like we're learning out of obligation rather than genuine interest. But here's the thing. Even within those subjects that seem boring on the surface, there are hidden gems waiting to be discovered. It's about shifting our perspective and approaching learning with a sense of wonder.
So it's like putting on those explorer goggles and seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Exactly. Instead of thinking, I have to learn this, try reframing it as, I get to learn this. What might surprise you? What connections can you make? What mysteries can you unravel?
I like that. It's about approaching learning as an opportunity rather than a burden.
Exactly. And it ties into something else that's incredibly important, finding your passions. What are you genuinely curious about? What topics or skills make you feel excited and energized?
Oh man, that's a big question. Sometimes it feels like I'm just going through the motions, not really connecting with anything deeply. Any advice on how to rediscover those passions?
Absolutely. One strategy is to think back to your childhood. What activities did you love? What made you lose track of time? Those early interests can often provide clues to your natural inclinations and strengths.
That's a great idea. I remember spending hours building things with Legos, taking apart old electronics, trying to figure out how things worked.
There you go. Those are signs of a curious mind, someone who enjoys problem solving and tinkering. Maybe there's a way to reconnect with those passions in your adult life, even if it's in a different form.
I love that. It's like rediscovering a part of myself that I had forgotten about.
And it's not just about childhood passions, of course. Be open to new experiences, try different things, step outside your comfort zone. You never know what might spark your curiosity and ignite your seeking system.
It's about embracing that beginner's mind, approaching the world with a sense of openness and wonder like a child exploring for the first time.
Exactly. And once you've identified some areas that pique your interest, the next step is to set clear and achievable learning goals.
Okay, so it's not enough to just be vaguely interested or something. We need to have a specific target to aim for.
You got it. Goals give our brains a direction to focus on, a sense of purpose. And when we achieve those goals, our brains reward us with that delicious dopamine, reinforcing the learning process and making us want to keep going.
It's like creating a positive feedback loop. The more we learn, the more motivated we become to keep learning.
Exactly. But it's important to set goals that are both challenging and attainable. If a goal is too easy, we get bored and disengage. If it's too difficult, we get discouraged and might give up.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, the zone of proximal development, that space where we're pushing ourselves just enough to stay engaged and motivated.
Exactly. And once you've set those goals, break them down into smaller, more manageable steps. Think of it as creating a roadmap for your learning journey, a series of achievable milestones that keep you moving forward.
That's a great tip. Sometimes I get overwhelmed looking at the big picture, but if I break it down into smaller chunks, it feels much more doable.
It's all about making the learning process feel manageable and rewarding step by step. So we've talked about cultivating curiosity, finding your passions, and setting clear goals. Now, what about the actual process of learning? Are there strategies we can use to make it more engaging and effective?
Okay, I'm ready for some brain hacks. What's in the learner's toolkit?
One powerful strategy is to engage multiple senses. Remember, the brain loves novelty and stimulation.
I'm all about novelty. So what does this look like in practice?
Instead of just reading a textbook, try listening to an audiobook while you walk or jog. Draw diagrams to visualize concepts, build a model, create a song or a poem about what you're learning. The more senses you engage, the richer the learning experience becomes, and the more likely the information is to stick.
It's about creating a more immersive, multisensory experience rather than just passively absorbing information.
Exactly, and it ties into another important strategy, active recall. Instead of just passively reading or listening, test yourself regularly. Try to explain the concepts to someone else. Write summaries. Create flashcards. The key is to actively retrieve the information from your brain.
So it's not enough to just read something once and assume we've learned it. We need to actively engage with the material and force our brains to work a little.
You got it. And here's the cool part. The act of struggling to recall information actually strengthens the neural connections in your brain, making it more likely that you'll remember it in the future.
It's like giving our brains a workout.
Exactly. And just like a physical exercise, the more we challenge ourselves, the stronger we become. And speaking of brain workouts, have you ever heard of spaced repetition?
I think so, but remind me how that works.
Spaced repetition is based on the idea that we learn and retain information better when we review it at increasing intervals. So instead of cramming everything in at the last minute, space out your study sessions and revisit the material over a longer period of time.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Spaced repetition takes advantage of the way our brains naturally forget information. By reviewing material just before we're about to forget it, we strengthen those neural connections and make it more likely that we'll remember it long term.
That's a really cool concept. It's like we're hacking our brains to learn more efficiently.
We are, and there are tons of tools and apps out there that can help you implement spaced repetition into your learning routine. It's one of the most effective ways to improve memory and retention.
So we've got an aging multiple senses, active recall, spaced repetition. Any other strategies we can add to our learning arsenal?
Absolutely. One that's often overlooked is the power of teaching others.
Wait, teaching others can help me learn?
You bet. When we teach something to someone else, we're forced to organize our thoughts, clarify our understanding, and come up with creative ways to explain the concepts.
It's like we're internalizing the information at a deeper level.
Exactly. And it also forces us to confront any gaps in our knowledge. If we can't explain something clearly, it's a sign that we need to go back and review it.
So teaching others is a win-win. It helps us learn and it helps others learn.
Precisely. And it ties into another powerful strategy, collaboration. Working with others can be incredibly motivating and stimulating.
I love brainstorming with others. It's like our collective brain power is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Collaboration allows us to share ideas, challenge each other's thinking, and learn from each other's perspectives. It's a fantastic way to engage that seeking system and make learning more dynamic and fun.
It's about recognizing that learning doesn't have to be this solitary, isolated activity. We can tap into the power of community and make it a shared experience.
Exactly. And speaking of community, let's talk about seeking out mentors and role models.
Okay, so it's not just about collaborating with peers. We can also learn from people who are more experienced than us.
Absolutely. Mentors and role models can provide guidance, support, inspiration. They can help us see what's possible, challenge us to grow, and connect us with valuable resources and opportunities.
It's like having a guide on our learning journey, someone who's been there before and can help us navigate the path.
Exactly. And finding mentors doesn't have to be a formal process. Think about people you admire, people who are doing things you'd like to do, and reach out to them. Ask for advice, offer to help them with a project, build a relationship.
It's about being proactive, taking ownership of our learning, and seeking out the support we need.
Exactly. And that ties into another important strategy, being reflective.
Okay, what does that mean in the context of learning?
It means taking the time to think about your learning process. What's working well? What could be improved? What are your strengths? What are your challenges? What strategies are most effective for you? What can you do differently next time? It's about becoming more aware of your own learning style and preferences.
It's like being a scientist in our own learning laboratory, constantly experimenting and refining our approach.
Exactly. This kind of metacognitive awareness, the ability to think about our own thinking, is crucial for becoming more intentional and effective learners.
I love that. It's about taking ownership of our learning journey and becoming the architects of our own education.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process, a lifelong adventure of discovery and growth.
This is all so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching learning. But let's be honest, there are times when we hit a roadblock, when motivation dips, and even the most curious minds feel stuck. How do we keep our seeking system engaged when we face those inevitable challenges?
That's a fantastic question, and it's something we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive. Stay tuned.
We're back and ready to tackle the tough stuff. We've explored some really amazing strategies for making learning more engaging and effective, but let's be real, we all hit those moments where motivation dips, and even the most exciting learning adventures can feel a bit overwhelming.
Absolutely. Learning isn't always a smooth upward trajectory. There are bumps along the way, and sometimes those bumps feel like mountains. But the key is to develop resilience, that ability to bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually build that resilience? How do we keep that seeking system engaged even when we're facing challenges and feeling discouraged?
One powerful strategy is to shift our focus from outcomes to the process itself. Instead of getting hung up on the end result, try to find joy and satisfaction in the journey of learning.
So instead of obsessing over the grade or the certificate or whatever that end goal might be, it's about savoring the little moments of discovery and growth along the way.
Exactly. When we focus on the process, we're more likely to stay engaged and motivated even when we encounter obstacles. It's about celebrating those small wins, embracing the challenge, and appreciating the growth that comes from pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
That's such a great mindset shift. It's like reframing challenges as opportunities for learning and growth rather than threats to our ego or our sense of self-worth.
Precises. And it ties into another important strategy, practicing self-compassion.
Okay, self-compassion. I've heard that term a lot lately, but how does that apply to learning?
It means treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, especially when we're struggling. It's about recognizing that everyone makes mistakes, that setbacks are a normal part of the learning process, and that we're not defined by our failures.
So it's about silencing that inner critic that can be so harsh and judgmental, especially when we're feeling stuck or discouraged.
Exactly. When we're kind to ourselves, we're more likely to stay motivated and keep trying, even when things get tough. It creates a safe space for experimentation and growth.
That makes so much sense. It's like giving ourselves permission to be human, to be imperfect, and to learn from our mistakes without beating ourselves up about it.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that learning is a lifelong journey, not a sprint to the finish line. There will be times when we need to take a break, to recharge, to reassess our goals, and to adjust our course.
So it's not about pushing ourselves relentlessly. It's about honoring our own needs and rhythms, knowing when to push forward and when to ease up a bit.
Precisely. Sometimes the most productive thing we can do is step back, reflect, and come back to the task with fresh eyes and renewed energy.
That's a great reminder. We've talked a lot about strategies we can use as individuals, but what about the role of others in supporting our learning journey? How can our relationships help us stay motivated and engaged, especially when we hit those inevitable bumps in the road?
That's such an important point. We're not meant to learn in isolation. Our relationships play a huge role in our motivation and success. One of the most powerful things we can do is surround ourselves with a supportive community of learners.
I love that idea. It's about finding our tribe, those people who share our passion for learning and who understand the challenges and rewards that come with it.
Exactly. Seek out people who inspire you, who challenge you to think differently, who celebrate your successes and support you through those inevitable setbacks. Join a study group, take a class, attend a conference, find online communities. There are so many ways to connect with like-minded learners.
And so sometimes just having someone to talk to about our learning journey, someone who gets it, can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of simply sharing your learning goals with others. Telling someone what you're working on can create a sense of accountability and make you more likely to stick with it, especially when motivation dips.
It's like having a cheerleader in your corner, someone who's rooting for you to succeed.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective or a different approach to get us unstuck. Reach out to your mentors, your peers, your online community. There's no shame in asking for guidance and support.
It's about recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers, and that it's okay to lean on others for support and encouragement.
Exactly. And remember, everyone learns differently at their own pace. What works for one person may not work for another. So be curious, experiment, and find what strategies work best for you.
It's about honoring our own unique learning styles and preferences and finding the tools and strategies that resonate with us on a personal level.
Precisely. And above all, don't give up on your learning journey. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks, but the rewards of lifelong learning are immeasurable. It's about embracing curiosity, cultivating resilience, and finding joy in the process of continuous growth and discovery.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's been an amazing journey exploring the power of the seeking system and how we can harness this incredible resource to make learning a more joyful, engaging, and fulfilling experience.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. I encourage you to continue exploring this topic and discovering how you can tap into your seeking system to unlock your full learning potential.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep growing.